Hi there and welcome back to Covey Fabrics DIY channel. My name is Amy and I'm visiting you today from Artisan Upholstery Studio right here on YouTube. Today I'm going to show you how to make a small washable throw rug that would look great in your entryway, maybe your kitchen, wherever you need a small little carpet that you can throw in the laundry and wash. So choosing the right fabric for this project is very important. You're going to want to choose fabrics that have a CRYPTON finish so that you'll be able to throw it in the washing machine and be sure that it will get those stains out. So the fabric that I selected is fun. It's a CRYPTON stain-proof fabric. It's got these dots on it, which I thought was a really cool pattern. The border is going to be this more solid blue, but they coordinate well together. They're going to look great. I'm starting by trimming off the edge to make it perfectly straight because I need the edge to be perfectly straight. I'm starting with the borders, and what I have to do is measure the length of this fabric because this is going to determine how long the carpet can be. So this fabric is 58 inches long, which gives me a nice long side for the rug, and I'm cutting 4 strips at 7 inches. So that's down the length of the roll. So 7 inches, and there will be 4 of them. So I have my 4 border pieces cut, and I'm going to trim them to be the size that I want them to be. Right now they're all the same, but they're going to be 2 long and 2 short pieces. And I need to cut a perfect 45-degree angle. So I've got a 45 with this piece of paper, and I'm going to find the edge of the fabric that I want to trim it down to. And now I'm going to cut that 45-degree angle. I'm going to do the same to the other side. I want it to be a perfect 45-degree angle on the opposite side of the same border. So now I'm going to make the second long piece exactly the same as this one. So I can just lay it right on top and cut that same shape onto the second long border. And they're going to fit on the fabric like this. So now I have to determine how wide the fabric is so that I can figure out how long the smaller borders are going to be. And I'm trimming the fabric down so that it's nice and straight and even as well. And I'm making both sides the same. So I'm just laying the fabric inside the border so that I know how long it's going to be. So the main fabric is going to be in about the middle of that 45-degree angle on both sides. And that's the placement where it fits nicely in that border without being too tight or too loose. So this is the idea here, where it's going to meet up on the corners, the long and the short borders. So we're going to sew it together to be able to get that nice seam right in the corner there. So now that I know the length of the smaller border, I've just marked it out, and now I can trim it down to the correct size using the end that is already cut to get a perfect 45-degree angle. So your second piece, you're going to want to just lay that first one on top of it and cut out the second piece so that it's exactly true to size. So I have my 4 pieces now, 2 long and 2 short, and I'm going to sew each one together. So I'm going to sew long, short, and then I'm going to close it up in a loop so that I have all pieces sewn together. And first I'm going to staple them so that I get them all organized so that I can take them over to the sewing machine and sew it all up properly. So this gives you an idea of what it'll look like once it's all sewn. So now I have my loop of fabric all ready for the sewing machine. So it's long, short, and then continued into a loop. So I'm snipping off the bulky part of that corner so that it's nice and clean and able to fold in and have a nice crisp corner edge. I'm using a pin to pull it all nice and square. So here's where the magic happens. So we have these triangles, we fold them, fold the seams on top of each other, and it becomes a square border. Ta-da! So giving it a good iron will help keep that edge nice and crisp for when we're sewing the fabric inside this border. So I'm giving the border another measure now that it's all sewn together, and I want to cut my fabric to fit in this border about midway on that 45-degree angle between the edges. So now that I have my measurements, I can trim this piece to fit in that border exactly how I want it. And I'm going to trim it down evenly so that the pattern matches up on both sides. So I'm ready to put the fabric inside that border. Test it out. Looks great so far. Really happy with those seams. And what I'm doing here is folding it under a 1/2 inch. And I'm going to sew it so that I have that 1/2 inch finished edge on one side. Now the corners are a little bit tricky. You have to snip the seam open a tiny bit to get it to lay down nice and flat, and roll it over on the second side, and just make sure that it's a perfect corner when you're sewing it. So the back side, I'm actually going to use a serger for that. If you don't have a serger, you can use a zigzag attachment on your sewing machine, or you can actually do what you did to the first side and just perfectly line them up so that when you sew them to the fabric, they both get sewn together. But serging is by far the easiest way to do it, because then it's going to be a little bit longer and it'll be easy to stitch it on one side and have it prepped on the other side so that there's no issues with missing stitches and gaps. So you can see here that the front is smaller than the back, but it still looks neat and tidy. So I'm fitting the fabric into the border now. I'm leaving a little gap because that's what we measured for. And I'm placing it so that it's even on all the sides. So using a stapler, you're just going to secure that fabric into place and make sure that the pattern does line up nicely. All right, so once you have all your staples in place, it's time to stitch that seam down, and I'm going as close as I can to the edge of that border to make a nice tight stitch right to the fabric. So I've got a nice looking edge, and I have to remove all those staples now. So here's the finished rug. It's pretty big, but not too big to throw in the laundry. It's got a nice crisp edge, finished on the back, nice and tight on the front, a nice crisp edge, and I'm laying it over top of a slid-proof carpet with a rubberized coating on the back, and that will make it so that it doesn't slip and slide when you step on it. That's a very important step with a little carpet like this. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.